Hey guys, this is Mel and I am back to do another tier ranking video, this time for the Vampire Diaries series. I figured since Legacy Season 3 is about to premiere shortly, I figure why not get back into the TVD universe with a tier ranking video. It's been a while since I've talked about Vampire Diaries specifically, so it'll be interesting to dive right into this. I'm recording on January 15th, 2021. Nope, can't say first recording because I did Sabrina on New Year's Day. But it's the first tier ranking video of the year. So we're going to do things a little differently. But first off, huge spoiler alert. Not only to the full Vampire Diaries series, because I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth when I'm trying to recall what has happened, but also just in case, spoiler alert for the originals, the first spinoff, and Legacies, the second spinoff, because they all do take place in the same world and they do draw on the same mythology. So just a heads up about that, though. Otherwise, other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. A little bit differently than what I did for the Arrowverse tier ranking set that I did. So this time we are gonna go with what I think is rewatch worthy, what I think is great, what I think is good, what season I think it had its moments, but it was alright. And then the meh, where it's like I didn't really care for it or I don't really remember. It's kind of a toss up in the air. But in order to help me decide which season goes where, I thought we should have a little few helpful questions to keep us on point. First question being, when I think of the season, what is the first thing that comes to mind? That could be an episode, that could be a ship moment, that could be a storyline, anything like that. First thing. Second one, mythology. Vampire Diaries is a huge mythology base. So in each season, it did pertain to a specific myth dump that we got. So I'm gonna rank them that way as well. Then we're going to go to antagonists. That could be like the full season villain, or it could just be short-term villains or antagonists if they were anti-heroes. Anything like that that caused our core Scooby Gang, quote-unquote Scooby Gang, to cause trouble. So we're going to think about those as well. Fourth one is storyline focus. So again, that's either the season story arc or the small minor story arcs, or it could be the ones that only occurred in one episode. Anything that really draws my mind. If it's strong enough, that could make or break the season for me. And the last one, I guess it's going to be an all-encompassing one to help me figure out where they rank. But is this a season I'm willing to watch the full season with no complaints, or just only key episodes? And maybe depending on how many key episodes, that could tell me where this is going to rank. So that's something there. So yeah, since we have 8 seasons and 5 sections, I hope to not go more than 2 for each. One is definitely only going to have one, but I really want to actually get a chronological ranking, because I can't just say they're all rewatch worthy, and I can't say they're all had its good moments or that they were all meh. There's got to be some favoritism in here going on. So again, though, this is just my personal opinion. Some of the things that I liked or didn't like might be very different for you or to a friend who also watches the show. So just keep that in mind. But I would love to hear in the comments down below how you rank the series, and maybe some reasons why, just in case they do differ, or maybe they're the same reasons as why I like specific seasons. So with all that out of the way, and I know that was a little bit long, but let's get right into this. Season 1. It's kind of crazy for me to think that this aired in 2009, which is over a decade ago. So that still boggles my mind. But I've been rewatching it through a reaction channel, and it's been pretty fun to really go back into it like this. But first reminder for season 1 is not only, I guess it's really the opener. I can't really base it like that, but like we do learn about the myth. It's really focused on Damon and Stefan meeting Elena, her trying to get into their world, and then also finding out where Catherine fits into this. There's also a huge episode where it's the founders. Plus, in season 1, This, out of all the seasons, this is the one that's very contained in when it comes to danger. As the series progresses, you kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger when it comes to like the mythology and like things like affect things they do affect outside of Mystic Falls, but in season 1 it really is contained to Mystic Falls. So I guess that would be a huge reminder then. Also, they're just all babies in this one, so that's fun. But again, like I said, mythology, we're learning about what vampires are. We're learning a little bit about witches, since this is when Bonnie is kind of slowly coming into her witchcraft. But it really is mainly learning about the lore of the vampires, how you turn, how do you, like, what are the ins and outs for that. Yeah, and then how it all started. So really, we don't go further than 1864 because it's about how the brothers became vampires, essentially. I mean, I think the only flashbacks we get in season 1 are in 1861 when they were human, I believe. Yeah, so there's that. Antagonist, I guess you can kind of argue that Damon is the first half of the antagonist or the anti-hero to the group. And then you kind of get, I think it's Anna in the second half, kind of with Logan, and then all trying to get to Catherine. So it's all indirectly connected to Catherine being the antagonist, but it's other people kind of doing her bidding or affected by her actions. But she does appear in the finale. So that's something there. But I do gotta say that Damon being the antagonist is just funny as hell with his quick wit and his one-liners. It just, like, it cracks me up. So there's that. Also, I just want to preface the fact that I may like some very deplorable or very questionable characters in this series. That does not translate into my everyday life. Like, I can like very despicable characters in TV shows and fiction because I know I will never want to encounter them in my real life. But again, this is a fantasy. An imagination that we're working with. So just keep that in mind, how there's characters that are set in their world. They have their own rules. They have their own actions. And their norms are very different to our norms in reality. So just to state that point. But moving on to the fourth one, so storyline focus, again, it's mainly focusing on Damon trying to get Catherine out of the tomb and then trying to learn more about what happened that night in 1864. So it still revolves around Catherine, so I'll leave it with that. And when it comes to will I watch all or key episodes, definitely there are certain key episodes I will revisit, like the Miss Mystic Falls pageant one, I will go back to without a problem. And then there are some episodes where I'll go back just for the nostalgia of it, just because I kind of want to see them all before everything really messed up their worlds. But as a season as a whole, I think I'll put it in great for now. Again, all these could change as I go through it, but as I'm sitting it right now, I'm thinking it's going great. Going into great. Now we get into season 2. Season 2, first reminder, is when we get the introduction of Klaus. The fact that we also get Catherine coming on board. The fact that we actually get the first doppelganger moment between Elena and Catherine, like actually sharing the screen together. I guess that's more than the first reminder. But this is also breaking down, so again, we're going to mythology now. This is the season that really breaks down the mythology of the vampires and then introduces the werewolves and then the sun and moon curse, but then finding out that it's not actually a curse on the werewolves and the vampires, but it's on Klaus specifically because he's a hybrid of the two. So it also brings up the reason why Catherine and Elena are doppelgangers. Kind of, it teases it because you don't really get into it until season 5. But it all ties together, and this is where it kind of expands outside of Mystic Falls, and it expands outside past 1864 to like 1,000 years of history being started. So it's a lot, but it also it just expands the world. Antagonist being Catherine is the first half because she's trying to get everything for the Sun and Moon Curse and trying to use Elena so that she can kind of barter it for her own life. But then you get all these other small antagonists who are trying to do the exact same thing Catherine's trying to do, and then you get Elijah coming in, and then you find out Klaus is the real big bad we got to worry about. His introduction was just perfect. Like, there's that. Storylines, again, it focuses a lot around the Sun and Moon Curse. I kind of touched upon it a little bit more. In regards to ships, Stefan and Elena are still together, but they're now dealing with the fact that Catherine's trying to come between them, and the fact that Elena's life is on borrowed time because of Klaus wanting to come kill her. But then we do know at this point that Damon does have feelings for her, so we do have the start of the love triangle, like really being aware of the love triangle. Also, Caroline's a vampire in season 2. She got turned at the end of season 1. Tyler turns into a werewolf in season 2 as well. What else? Yeah. But in regards to all our key episodes, I have no problem watching season 2, all of it. Like, I really enjoyed season 2, so it's going to be rewatch worthy. I just really love how more in depth we get into the mythology of it. I love how we get the introduction of Elijah and Klaus. Although their introduction in season 2 kind of contradicts what gets established on the original, so I do have a little bit of a problem with that. But I loved how they were introduced. I love the reputation and the history behind it. It just gives them this imposing force. And then when you find out that, oh, they're brothers and they're on opposite sides, it's like, oh crap, what kind of dysfunctional family history do you have going on over there? Go to the originals if you want to really dive into that. But I really enjoy that. We also get a little bit more of interaction with Catherine, and I love it when we get doppelganger moments, when it's Nina does a really good job of both playing Catherine and Elena in the same scene together, but also them trying to play each other as well, which I always find fun, especially on Orphan Black when Tatiana Maslany did it over there. So yeah, season 2 definitely, without a doubt, rewatch worthy. Let's go to season 3. So season 3 is when we get the rest of the Michelsons. That's the first reminder I get, is that we get Klaus is now his full true hybrid, and we find out that he did it to kind of overpower Michael, who's been hunting him down for 1,000 years. And we find a little bit more about the dysfunction of the Michelson family. Also find out the origin story of the vampire race itself, which dives into the mythology of it. We meet the whole clan, and then we kind of almost see the extinction of the vampire race because of our little young newbies trying to kill off the big dogs without realizing what that does to the whole system of it. But the antagonists of the season is Michael, Esther, which is Klaus's parents, well, mom and stepdad. And then also there's this mysterious killer in Mystic Falls, and it turns out it to be Alaric's alter ego, which Esther uses to her advantage to turn him into a vampire killer, kind of like Michael 2.0, which leads to his death, very sadly. Yeah, there's that. Also, we kind of see the beginnings of Damon and Elena, because at this point, at the end of season 2, Stefan made a deal with Klaus in order to save Damon, and that kind of ended Stefan and Elena. So season 3 dealt with Damon and Elena trying to get Stefan out of Klaus's hair and try to bring him back from being a Ripper, but then that brings Elena closer together. So that brings, yeah, it's a lot. So you get a lot more of them being close. Huge development for them in this season as well. Comes to mind, I think was it 319? I believe it's the big Delana Hotel kiss. I believe so. There's a lot of great moments. And then I think episode 303 is when we meet Rebecca, and then 313 or 14 is when we meet the rest of the Michelsons. 308 is when we get the flashback to 1,000 years ago. So yeah, kind of dealing with a storyline focus is the fact that we do get the origin stories of the vampire race itself. We meet a lot more characters. And this is kind of the start of loving the bad guy when you're not supposed to. So it's like season 2, you're kind of like, well, get rid of Klaus, like he needs to die kind of thing. But now you're like, well, I kind of want to see him around just to see how he changes things up, because you have 1,000 years of history and knowledge versus at most 200 years for this group. So it's kind of like that. So season 2, all or key episodes. Season 2, I could really put it as rewatch or as great, just because I really love the I really liked the introduction. I'm gonna have to put great because I really like the introduction of Michelson family. I really like the mythology behind the vampire race. Is really interesting to see that it was their family specifically that were originally witches and then got turned into vampires. So that's pretty cool. But the season ends with Elena dying with vampire blood in her system. So season 4 deals with a vampire Elena. So that's the first reminder right there, is the fact that we deal with vampire Elena. Also, huge fact is that we get Damon and Elena being together. I mean, kind of? They do get together, but then it's questionable means, but we'll get back into it. But we find out through Elena what it means to be a vampire. I mean, we got a little bit with Caroline and Vicky previously, but this is with Elena, we really get to see her struggling, and then with her we see the vampire switch, we see the discovery of a sire bond. While all this is happening, we have, kind of with the mythology, with all this, we have them introducing Silas, who's meant to have the cure for vampirism. They think it's a cure for all vampires, but it's really only one dose meant for Silas, who was the very first immortal. So season 4, they're on this journey to find this cure to give to Elena because she's struggling so much, which leads to a lot of death and destruction. Also, Antagonists, you can kind of put it with Silas indirectly because of his henchman, Professor Shane, I believe, who manipulates Bonnie. You also get the Michelsons being antagonists. You also get the hunters from the Brotherhood of the Five, which are supernatural hunters tasked to killing vampires, like magically so, and then Jeremy becomes one, and they're connected to Silas. It's a whole bunch of things. But I do remember one major storyline focus was not only Elena being a vampire, but the fact that she suddenly came into feelings for Damon, but then they find out it's because of a sire bond, and they think that's the only reason why she's in a relationship with Damon. But then they all just forget that the only reason she has a sire bond is because she had to have feelings for the vampire who turned her. If Elena never had feelings as a human for Damon, she would not have been sired to Damon after becoming a vampire. They forget that huge thing, so the whole season deals with Damon questioning whether or not it was the sire bond that gave Elena these feelings for him, which results in her turning off her humanity and her emotions so that the sire bond gets kind of reversed. But then now she has no feelings, so now she's just doing whatever she wants, which was interesting to see as well, because she wasn't exactly like Catherine, but she was still not the Elena we know. So it was a very interesting storyline. But by the end of it, they found out that when she got her emotions back and she was still a vampire, they realized that Elena still did have feelings for Damon. She always had feelings for Damon, but it just came about a lot faster than she would have expected because she resisted for so long. So that's a huge storyline I remember there. Would I watch all their key episodes? I would, for season 4, I'd watch key episodes. And if I'm honest, it's probably going to be all the Delena related ones. Not going to lie. There are a lot of frustrating parts in the season, I remember, especially when it came to Professor Shane. But we do see the Michelsons being forced to work with Elena and the others. But then we see a lot of clashing and, also a lot of deaths lost. So I think for that purpose, it's going to go in good. I mean, I really liked it because of the development of Damon and Elena. And, I mean, it did irritate me when they kind of put the question of the sire bond making Elena have feelings for Damon. But I really like that, no, it's because she had feelings for him before she turned, and he was the one who turned her. And that's why she became sired and had, kind of had that special bond with him. It kind of puts me in question of what would happen if it was Stefan's blood that turned her at the point that they were at in their dynamic. Interesting. But there's that. Season 5. Season 5 was an interesting one. First reminder is the fact that we have the 100th episode featured in this season. I think it's episode 12. Also, season 5 ran the same time as the original season 1. So this is where, so season 4 had the backdoor pilot for the spinoff. So all the Michelsons moved to the original, so they're not as present in season 5. But season 5 dealt more with for mythology, it dealt more with Silas being the first immortal, why why Elena and Catherine were doppelgangers. We got the introduction of Amara because of that. We find out that Stefan is the doppelganger of Silas. So we got to know a little bit more that it wasn't just 500. It wasn't just between Catherine and Elena being doppelgangers, or it wasn't just between them and Tatia from the time of the originals. But it stemmed even further back to Amara, who was the very first of them to take the immortality spell. And for a balance, you needed a shadow version of themselves, a doppelganger. So it's very interesting. They also introduced the idea of the Travelers, which is a subsection of witches. They also introduced the Gemini Coven. They also introduced the idea of the other side, so Limbo. And that came with Bonnie acting as the anchor, taking that title from Amara after she died at the end of season 4 to save Jeremy. It's a lot of things that happened, but they do add a lot more myth to it. Antagonists, where do I begin? We get Silas still. We get Marcos and his Travelers. We get Catherine because she does a body swap thing with Elena when her getting the cure causes her to very rapidly age. I remember that. And then we deal with the collapsing of the other side because of the Travelers. Travelers also tried to, subvert the magic of the nature witches, so Bonnie's type of witch. Yeah, it's a whole slew of things there. So storyline focus, kind of more witch element, I would say, because the doppelgangers are part of, they are a byproduct of witches, of magic. So you kind of stem more with that. You kind of learn about the other side, which is a creation, which was created with witches, and then you got the Travelers, which Catherine was actually. Here's another thing too that I just realized. I think Catherine said that her father was a Traveler. Also, we meet Catherine's daughter too, but she said that her father was a Traveler, so that means Catherine would have been a witch if she remained human. So that makes me wonder why Elena wasn't a witch, because she's still from the same bloodline, right? I always had an issue about Elena being dubbed a doppelganger and being classed as a supernatural creature or a supernatural being because of the Gilbert ring, and yet there's nothing supernatural about her in her human form. So the fact that we find out that Catherine is actually a descendant of a Traveler, which is a subset of a witch, I would have assumed that something like that would have came from a human Elena, which would have disappeared when she became a vampire. But I think that was a missed opportunity right there for sure. I would have loved to see Elena explore her Traveler roots, just to see how that differed from Bonnie's nature witch roots, So there's that. All are key episodes. Probably key episodes because I did get annoyed with the whole body jumping thing with Catherine and Elena. I got very frustrated that it took her friends 3 episodes before 2 episodes, which spanned over a couple days, for them to realize that Elena wasn't Elena anymore. I love the 100th episode because we do get a lot of familiar faces popping in. I did love, there was this one episode, I think episode 3 was when we got 3 doppelgangers together. So we got Amara, Catherine, and Elena in a room together, which was pretty cool to see. This is also their first year in college as well. Forgot. Introduced the Augustine Society, which is this secret club that experimented on vampires, which we got a little bit more history with Elena's parents, specifically her father. A lot that happened in season 5, for sure. But I think it's because of the whole doppelganger element, and that is the reason why I would say rewatch worthy. Because of the fact that the doppelganger thing was always something, from the very beginning, I was always interested in when it came to, why is Catherine and Elaine, why are they doppelgangers? Why does she look like her, kind of thing. So I really like that we got a lot more in depth. I like that there was a reason behind why they were doppelgangers, and not just because of the fact that, oh, you're my descendant. I mean, we found out why. We found out where Catherine's daughter went, so I'll leave it at that. Keep rambling, I'm sorry. Season 6. Season 6 was tricky, but this is when Season 2 of the originals was airing, so keep that in mind. Season 6, this one was also, first reminder, the fact that we kind of have it set in 2 different places. So we have it set in regular Mystic Falls, or the college, or Whitmore College. And then we also have it set in the prison world, 1994 prison world. And that is where Bonnie and Damon get stuck, and we meet Kai Parker. And then everybody else from Mystic Falls is stuck living outside of Mystic Falls because the Travelers put this anti-magic barrier around the town. So anybody who has magic in them, once they walk through the border, they can't use magic anymore. So any vampire who walks in, they die because magic is what's keeping them alive in their vampirism. So anyways, so with Season 6, we find out a little bit more about the prison world, a little bit more about why the Gemini Coven created it to contain Kai Parker. With it, we also find out about the merge. We also meet other witches from the Gemini Coven, like Luke and Liv, 2 twins. And also, Alaric falls in love with Joe. And they were planning to get married, but in the finale, but then Kai intervened. So it's a lot from that. What else? Prison world. We also jump into a prison world from, what year was it? A different prison world. I think 1912 maybe? But it's a prison world that has the mother of Damon and Stefan trapped there. So that's another thing in itself. But, so that's mythology. So that's, again, still more magic based. Because we do find out a little bit about heretics. Find a little about what siphon witches are, which is what Kai is. A little bit more about the merge with the Gemini Coven. Also, Alaric is back as a vampire, and then he turns human again. We get Elena forgetting her feelings for Damon because he theoretically died at the end of Season 5, but then when he returns, she doesn't have those feelings anymore, so they have to fall back in love with each other again, only to get separated by Kai's revenge in the finale, because this is the last season that Nina Dobrev is a part of. So antagonists are all over the place, but Kai is a huge antagonist, I remember. And I remember, for someone who's only meant to be 22, or I guess in his 40s, depending on if you count his constant loop in the 1994 prison world, he is very psychotic in his very young life. And compared to the Michelsons, or any other vampire we've come across who have decades or maybe centuries on them, and why they're probably psychotic in their own right, but Kai is just a baby compared to all of them, and he's like very deeply disturbed, but like also like he has his one-liners that are just like funny, but then it's like he has no care. Like with Damon when he was the antagonist in season 1, or Klaus in season 3, you'd hope that there would be some bit of humanity in them that maybe like you could kind of like tap into. Like Klaus had a soft spot for Caroline, Damon had a soft spot for Elena, so anytime the women would ask them of something, you would see that hesitance from him. With Kai, there's no such thing. Maybe with Bonnie, but like you really did not know if something would trigger him and he would just go off. And as a siphon, it's just like, wow. So I have to say Kai, like for a mortal, I shouldn't say he's human because he's a witch, but as a mortal, like normal lifespan enough, he was crazy. Like he was probably the best bad guy as far as like normal human lifespans go. But I'd have to put it on. Is this good? It had its moments. I'll say it had its moments. Can't keep putting them all in the top 3. I'll say it has its moments. Just because I could have gone without the whole Elena erasing her emotions for Damon. But it was nice seeing them fall back in love again. I also did, I think Caroline lost her mom in this one too. Yeah, she lost her mom in this season, which was a huge thing. And then that's another storyline thing. She turned off her humanity switch. And she was a functioning vampire without her emotions. Like, that was impressive. Like, right there. So, again, had its moments. But yeah, wasn't a fan of some things. I also didn't like that we knew beforehand that this was going to be, I think we knew beforehand that this was going to be Nina's last season. So I kind of prefer, like, if something permanent were to happen to a character, I'd kind of rather know that first and then dig into whether or not that's the end of the actor's contract with the show, then find out about the actor's contract and then biding my time and waiting. Okay, so how are they going to write them off? How are they going to write them off? Which I think that's kind of how, I think if I remember correctly, that's how I felt in the final episodes of season 6. I mean, I have to go back. I mean, I do have my recap videos of the tail end of season 6, so I can always go back and check where my mindset was at that time. But yeah, it had its moments. Like, I definitely want, there are key episodes I would rewatch, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But season 7. So season 7 is different because of the fact that it really is just, not only the fact that Elena's not there, but we get Damon and Stefan, but we also get many time jumps into the future. So we have them jumping to present day and then jumping forward 3 years in the future. So that was a little bit different, and it was interesting having each episode open up in the future, and then the rest of the episode takes back in the present. So we're wondering, okay, what did they do to get where they are in the present day? If I remember correctly. That was a huge difference there. We also featured a crossover event with the originals, which was airing season 3 at the time. That happened before the present day merged with all of, like, the future stuff. So I think for a good majority of the season, you got that cut back between 3 years in the future and the present, and then it got to a point where they're suddenly, okay, the present now is just going to jump permanently into the future. So that's something to keep in mind, though, too. But mythology, though, we learn more about heretics, which is a hybrid between a siphon witch and a vampire. So witches usually lose their abilities once they become vampires, but it's the opposite for siphon witches because they never had natural ability before being turned. So when they get turned into vampires, the magic from the vampirism allows them to allows their siphon abilities to make them witches full time. So there's that. So we have to deal with the heretic witches that move into town. We have to deal with Lily Salvatore, kind of being the ringleader for that. So there's a lot of history coming up about the Salvatore family in this season. We also see Bonnie and Caroline still in college. We also deal with, I think we deal with Caroline's pregnancy. Yeah, because just before Joe died, the Gemini Coven transferred the twins she was carrying into the nearest viable body, and that would have been Caroline as a vampire. So she has to deal with carrying the twins to full term, which is interesting in itself because she's the first vampire ever pregnant. Also, we do get the introduction of the Phoenix Stone because in Alarc's attempts to try to resurrect his dead fiance, comes across the Phoenix Stone who he thinks could do the job, but instead it's just vampire souls trapped in an enchanted stone, and he accidentally put one of their souls into Joe's body. But attached to the Phoenix Stone is this hunter who has like 7 lives, I believe, and she hunts vampires, and the moment she tracks one of them, she's constantly running. So once she constantly marks a target, she will not stop until she traps them in the stone. So that leads Stefan on a very 3-year-long run against her before he wakes Damon up, who put himself in pretty much put himself to sleep in a coffin because he wanted to wake up when Elena woke up from her sleeping spell. So that was something there. So Antagonist, Lily, the Heretics, Reina Cruz, which is the Phoenix Hunter. Yeah, storylines, you kind of got your little small storylines between the Heretics themselves, between the Salvatore family as well, and then also with the mythology of what brought on Reina Cruz, because her abilities as a Phoenix Hunter is brought on from magic, because they wanted to help her decimate the vampire race. So that's something there. Would I watch all or some key episodes? This one's a key episode one for me. I definitely would watch the crossover event between the originals for sure. I would watch for some key moments for the Salvatore family dynamic. It was very interesting to see because their mother's death played a huge part into their childhood. To find out that she wasn't actually dead, kind of have to deal with all that. So that was pretty interesting there. Still felt a little weird to me that of all, like, they dealt with the Michelson family, they dealt with bigger bads, and yet it took Reina Cruz to get them to have her be an issue for over 3 years, when their issues with, like, Klaus and, like, all the others were just, like, for a season, which was within the year, so it's like, what? So for 7, I would have to put it as meh. It's not my favorite, but it's, yeah. I mean, it's a struggle because previous 6 seasons, Elena's always been the protagonist. The show always revolved around her, so to kind of see that shift to the brothers, it took some getting used to, but I think they did a good job with what they could. It's just personally not one I would fully rewatch again. So there's that. And then the final season, season 8. Well, where would it go? So first reminder, final season, season 8. So you got a lot of nostalgia with a lot of familiar faces coming back, trying to tie up loose ends. But then also mythology-wise, we get into the idea that hell exists, and we meet Arcadius, or Cade, and we meet the Sirens, who are servants of Cade, and they're trying to bring more souls into hell. And eventually they recruit the Salvatore brothers as their replacements. So you get a little bit of further backstory, kind of more afterlife-ish in that sense. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Through all this, though, mythology, we get the return of the Cure coming back. What happened? Okay, so I think when Stefan was recruited by the Sirens, he ended up getting his humanity turned off, and then that led to him, in order to stop him, he had to get the Cure used against him, which turned him human. But then in the finale, he used that Cure on Damon because he couldn't handle being human again after what he did as a vampire. So then Damon ends the series with him as a human. So when he reunites with Elena, they could be human together because she would have aged naturally because she was still within her normal lifespan, while for Damon, once the Cure left his system, he would have rapidly aged. So he kept the Cure in his system until he died of an old age, supposedly based off the series finale. But there's that. But also, when Damon was working for the Sirens, there was a lot of reworking of getting the Siren to put herself in Elena's shoes when it comes to Damon's memories and his emotions, so that Damon's loyalty would be to the Siren and not to Elena. So that caused for some trickiness there. But then we also got Enzo coming in to help him out too. So I think I'm gonna have to put it at good. If I take out all the callbacks to the past and the familiar faces, those make it great. If I take that back, if I go down to the mythology of Hell and Cade and find out Catherine had a play in it as well, and the Sirens, even though this is the most recent season, I don't remember it as well. So that should be a sign enough in itself on where I stand. But yeah, the finale though was really good, and how they were able to bring all those people back the way they did. But yeah, I think I did a better job tier ranking. So as it stands, we have my rewatch worthy, where I would be happily, well, season 2, I would happily watch that full season all the way through again. Season 5, it would be next for me. I would then probably go into great being season 3 and then season 1. Kind of prefer the whole Klaus tension first and foremost. Although villain Damon is a very close second. Then we go into good, which I'll probably go season 4 and then season 8. And then we go season 6, and then we go season 7. Again, this is just my personal opinion, but I am interested to see what you guys have to say about your own rankings. So let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. I will be doing a ranking video for the originals coming soon if it's not posted up already. Also, with Legacies returning, my recaps for that will be coming back as well. But otherwise, other videos on this channel if you want to check out anything from there. Also, Tumblr, anything I post, Tumblr link for anything I post, free blog, promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, all that on Tumblr, link down below. WordPress, same thing. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still work in progress. Both I do have to update. I did it over the holiday break, but I'm just starting my latest semester for school, and it's gonna be really heavy on my screenwriting. I'm on the final leg for I'm on 3 major projects right now, so that should be taking my focus. So just a heads up about that. Otherwise, that is going to be pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I did not expect this video to go so long. Also, let me know in the comments if having these 5 questions were helpful at all to figure out what my rankings for these seasons were, if they help you at all as well, because I know for sure I didn't have these questions in my previous Arrowverse rankings, and the videos were not this long. So let me know if it helped or hurt it in any way. But I don't know. Probably going to still keep the questions for the originals. We'll see. But until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Please stay safe during the pandemic, wear a mask, and be kind to one another. Take care, guys. Bye.